Folks come together in Nashville for the National Rural Electric Cooperative meeting. We sit down with state leaders for the latest innovations and trends powering the industry. Plus, healthy, wholesome, and affordable. Meet Texas farmers dedicated to growing quality products while also educating consumers on how their food is raised. Well, good morning and thanks for watching the Market Day Report. I'm Janet Adkison. More than 6,000 electric cooperative leaders from the U.S. are in Nashville, Tennessee for the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association's annual meeting. In the U.S. cooperatives, they provide electricity to an estimated 42 million people in 47 states. Joining us now is Kentucky Association of Electric Cooperatives President and CEO Chris Perry and Indiana's Electric Cooperatives President and CEO Tom VanParis. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us today. Pleasure to visit with you.
Thank you for having us.
And it sounds like you have a busy week of conversation ahead.
We do.
Well, tell us, give us kind of a little bit of insight as far as the electric cooperatives. You guys are in a situation where you're based in rural America, and one of the challenges we have across the country in agriculture and also other industry, a lot of young folks are leaving rural America. How are our rural cooperatives dealing with this?
Yeah, we see it as a huge issue. We know, from a national perspective over the last 6 years, there's been population trends away from the rural communities. Speaking for Indiana, we have 92 counties in Indiana, and 54 of them have seen population declines. If you overlay the co-op territory over that map in Indiana, that's the areas in which we serve. So it's a huge concern for us in Indiana, not only from the standpoint of sustaining those communities, what we serve, but also as a way to bring in talent as it relates to replenishing our workforce with so many folks entering into the retirement years.
And what are you guys doing to try and engage these young folks?
Well, in Kentucky, we're doing a lot. We educate a lot. We're members of everything from helping train teachers. We're working with colleges and universities across the state to make sure that they understand the importance of getting skilled workforces back into rural areas. And we're also leaders in the economic development departments and the counties. We're all over trying to help understand this problem. It's a huge problem in Kentucky as well, when we're trying to recruit industries, when trying to retain our farmers. We're really working hard to make sure that we help educate these young people and try to keep them in our communities.
What do you think that cooperatives across the country can do to make rural America more appealing to these folks?
Well, I think part of it certainly begin to understand in terms of what are the drivers, in terms of the young people, in terms of what's important to them. And so much of the research that we've been able to do in Indiana, points to things like quality of life and accessibility to things like broadband, good education system, good paying jobs. And so understanding in terms of what those drivers are for young Americans, if you will, is really what drives some of the efforts that we're doing in Indiana.
You mentioned broadband, and of course we talked about this a little bit earlier, and it is something that's definitely on your radar.
Oh, we're stepping up in Kentucky as well as every other state to make sure that access is available. In Kentucky there's legislation and there's a group that's trying to get fiber throughout the state. We know that's a real challenge. If they need to recruit industrial customers or manufacturing jobs in some of these areas, if they don't have that infrastructure, they're not coming. So we're leading the charge to say, come on, let's get this moving forward.
Logistically, it's got to be a challenge, but rural electric cooperatives, you guys came together and helped bring rural electric to rural America. It's happened before. Can we make it happen again?
Yeah, the way we look at it, exactly that fact. 80 years ago we helped bring electricity to rural America, and in so many other ways related to quality of life, whether it be broadband issues or whatever else. There are things that, since we are part of those communities, we have that commitment, we are local, there are a lot of things that we think from a cooperative standpoint, just beyond electricity, that we can do to help quality of life in America.
Now, something else that I do know from my background in rural America is that there's a contest that you guys have, and you bring young people to Washington, D.C. as a way to engage them. Talk a little bit about this and what exactly it is.
Not always a contest. Sometimes it's just talented students that we hear from teachers interested in history, political science, any of those type issues, or agriculture policy. And what we do is we bring students from all over the state and Indiana and Kentucky both do it. We bring them to our capital in Frankfurt, and we educate them about state politics, and they meet with the governor and the agriculture commissioner. And then later in the year, we take them to D.C. to meet with our elected officials and learn what really happens and the issues that are driving their home life. And what's driving companies like their cooperatives and businesses. So there's 1,800 students that went last year. We have over 100 from Kentucky, I believe. They have
we're at
the same.
118.
So it is a great week. And it's really interesting. I was in our State House the other day, and somebody came up to me and started talking about the youth tour that they had went on 20 years ago. It shows that we're making a difference.
I remember that because it was an essay contest back home is what it was. So I didn't win that essay contest.
No.
But a great experience for those who had the chance to.
And one of the other things that we're doing is, we have now a history in Indiana of engaging these young students in youth tour, page day activities, things like that. And what we're doing now is creating a continuous communication link to let them know and keep in touch with them. Perhaps down the road they may have a career that the electric cooperatives could offer to them. They've already made that link. They're familiar with us. We're going to use that to our advantage.
And also one point to make is that the rural electric cooperatives, you guys are established. You're definitely very well respected and a good, solid career path in rural America for folks who do want to call it home.
Oh, that is, but you hit on a good point there. That's a real challenge we have. Think of bringing engineers and financial people back. When they graduate from the University of Kentucky, many of them don't go back to these rural areas. So that's something we're really working on, as rural electric cooperatives. Technology is driving us, and we're not in the past, but we need those talented students to come back home.
Wonderful. Well, we're giving them the heads up today.
There you go.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. We certainly appreciate it. Well, again, Chris Perry and Tom VanParis with the National Rural Electric Cooperative here in town for their annual conference in Nashville. Be sure to stay tuned as we sit down with more National Rural Electric CEOs throughout the day. And coming up in our next half hour, we will be focusing on Touchstone Energy Cooperatives and their impact on rural communities across the country.